News Network. We've been reporting on the protests, but what isn't clear necessarily is how Sri Lanka got here. How did we get into this crisis?
Well, there's multiple warnings 10 months before, by the experts, many experts, economic from external as well as within the country, has warned the government. But government's ultra-nationalist posture kept them away from IMF. They saw IMF as economic hitman, and they don't want to go to IMF. And so finally, the government decided to go to IMF. We have a serious liquidity issue. Foreign reserves dropping to nearly less than 500 million. Then we have insolvency issue in the country. So it's a serious crisis. People are dying. You have president calling on the 22nd of April, which is the extraordinary gazette, calling Army, Navy, and Air Force. You see a militarization going on in the country. So it's a serious crisis.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's lots to pull apart there. Let's go step by step, beginning with they finally did have a meeting with the IMF, which the IMF described as being fruitful. So is the IMF, is the international community able to pull Sri Lanka out of this crisis, economically at least?
Well, IMF could do that when you have political stability, when you have continuation of political, the wheels of the democratic turning. But it's not. Here is a issue where the protesters want the regime out, the first family out. They are corrupt. They are autocratic. They have suppressed the people. The people are in pain. So they don't want Rajapaksas anymore. Mm-hmm. So IMF would need to see some sort of stability in the political establishment in Sri Lanka. That's something that they don't have. So I think even if the IMF assists, they are ready to assist, but then you need to see some cabinet, first of all. They have appointed a cabinet, a new cabinet, but the protesters are rejecting. They are saying there's the same old faces coming, they're corrupt, they don't want to see them. So there is a political crisis in Sri Lanka.
So it seems like a vicious cycle. You can't have economic stability unless you have a stable government, and you can't have a stable government, which the vast majority of the people who are out on the streets say is corrupt. Now, you said specifically that the government is suppressing the people. What do you mean when you say that? What are we seeing happen to people's civil liberties in the country?
Well, the shooting in Rambukana was a clear incident where police violated, shooting the innocent people who were standing. They don't have the basic commodities. There won't be any medicine, the essential medicines. It's only lasting for 1 month. There is no fuel. So people are in serious stress right now. So what Gotabaya has done on the 22nd April, that's why I mentioned about this, the danger of this gazette notification calling the military, because South Asian nations have a tendency to move quickly to military states. Mm-hmm. And Sri Lanka, with its with its history, can quickly move in towards a militaristic sort of state. This gazette notification issued on the 22nd is a serious issue for the country, and Sri Lanka needs external support right now. It can't because the people are wanting the corrupt regime out, which has clear sort of. I can compare with the Arab Spring because they are against autocracy, they are against corruption, and they are against they want the living standards, the poverty that they have in the country. So what they want is some sort of a new political establishment. But for that, you need at least an interim government immediately in place in Sri Lanka.
That is such a fascinating comparison with the Arab Spring. But Asanga, many would say that what were the hopes and aspirations of the Arab Spring didn't necessarily come to fruition. What we ended up seeing in many of the Arab states was that the replacement government was actually just as autocratic as the regimes that they were replacing. Is there a possibility of that happening in Sri Lanka?
I think the protesters are very. When I spoke to a few of them, what they are saying is they're not supporting any opposition leader. They're not supporting any. But they want to see is, I think, a new faces in the parliament. So they're saying like many of the faces in the parliament are corrupt. They are associated with the regime, and so here's a genuine attempt where entire civil society, the judiciary, the teachers, the mothers, the children, everybody's out there and protesting. So I don't see that it would move towards an autocratic. I mean, they're tired of this autocratic grip, which has been holding. I mean, 26 military appointments, which keeping it was an autocratic regime in Sri Lanka. I mean, no checks and balances. He amended the constitution, the president, from the 20th Amendment. But the Prime Minister has mentioned he will go back again to the 19th, which is bringing the checks and balances. But the protesters are rejecting.
Okay, we'll be watching. But Asanga, thank you so much for your time and helping us understand a bit more what is happening in Sri Lanka.
Thank you.
Asanga